Did you go to church as a kid? I certainly went to church as a kid. Church was this strange place where you had to do a few things. The big ones were not breathe, not move, certainly not talk. And I had worked very hard at that. Like by the time I was about 10 years old, which is when this memory's coming in, 10, 11, somewhere around there. And let me tell you, I was pretty good. You see, back in those days, if I moved my left leg literally zero point 0.3 centimeters to the left during a church service, we would get this thing called a closet visit. I don't know if you've ever been in a closet visit, but what that looks like is you get a whooping during church in the closet. Now, I mean, we're supposed to be talking about this God thing and this, that, and the other thing, and I'm getting a whooping in the closet because I moved my left leg zero point 0.2 inches. It's crazy, man. I think back then that's how I kind of understood church is like this thing we went to where your parents talk to people, but you would do everything in your power to talk to nobody. Because if you embarrassed your parents or said something or whatever, I mean, the end result was always a whooping. And I didn't like whoopings much. I'll tell you the truth. Not a big fan. Well, this particular Sunday, like any other Sunday, I guess, or day, was met with incredible uh, fury. Fury is a good word. After the service was done. Now, I don't know what set off my mother this Sunday. I couldn't tell you. Could not tell you what happened, but I can tell you this. As soon as the service was over, as soon as the pastor had said his final thing, my mother goes, "Michael, it's time to go." And let me tell you something. When she pulled out the "it's time to go" thing, it's a wrap, bro. We got to get out of here because things are going to go down. Well, what ended up happening is the worst thing that could have happened. I'm thinking dad's going to drive. He has enough common sense to know that mom's pretty pissed off because she's forcing us to leave when she normally spends 20, 30 minutes talking to people. Then us kids get to go outside and play with our friends away from the parents so we can actually be human beings and have conversations and whatnot. And what ends up happening is my mother goes, "No, I'm driving." And I knew it was on. I knew in that one phrase that things were about to get dangerous simply because of the state my mother was in. Now, I would have said something, but I don't like provoking violence. I much prefer violence to be as far away from me as possible, especially when I was that young. But you never know what you're gonna get, man. That's the problem with growing up with dysfunction. You never know how things are gonna turn out. Well, my parents get in the car, and apparently, I think that the injustice that made my mother go from 0 to 10 billion in a split second was that my father had said something at some point. Now, this is one of the things I always wanted to solve as a kid was this reality around my mother. Like, I spent so many permutations in my mind of like, if I just do this, then she won't get angry. If I just try this, then she won't get angry. All these different things. And by this time, 10 years old, there is no more things to try. She was just going to get angry. And I just had to accept it as it is. This is what it is, and that's the way it's going to be. Well, my mother and father were in this screaming match, And my mother kept accelerating and kept accelerating and kept accelerating. And by the time we were in a stretch of road where there's a ravine over to the left side, and you should maybe take these corners at like, I mean, if you're booking it, you're talking like 55 miles an hour. Like there S curves and there's a ravine, you lose control. You're doing the multi flip down the mountain thing, like you see in all these movies, you know. Well, my dad kept yelling, slow down, pull the car over, slow down. And whenever my mother was doing something, her goal with that was to not listen to what anyone else was saying. And so my dad says, slow down. What does she do? She's going to push that accelerator. She's going to take that foot and she's going to go in this direction. You know what I mean? Well, I remember looking up and seeing that we were at 90 miles an hour on curves that the sign said, I think it was like 35 back then. Now it's 45. I've driven that stretch of road recently. And I was in this moment realizing, like, whoa, I thought we were at a level 2, but I think that this is now a level 3. And I didn't have words for that at the time, but I had this heightened sense of the death that could happen when you're traveling at the velocity that we were traveling at. And this is what added to that. My dad began fighting my mom for control of the vehicle. So my dad, he's over in the right passenger side of the minivan with his left leg reaching over to press the brake while my mother is full throttling the accelerator. And let me tell you, I clearly remember looking back over my left shoulder, and I looked at my brothers and sisters and I said, we're all going to die and I love you. I remember saying that out loud with the weight of it. And it was, by that point, I was just in such a state of acceptance that this is the way that it is, that I can't change it, that it's, this is my life and this is normal. Everybody goes to church on a Sunday and starts driving 90 miles an hour around curves that you should be going 35. Everybody has their parents fighting for control of the minivan on the way home. That's how I saw the world. And I don't know how we made it home without flipping that car. I'm telling you right now, that stretch of road was about 6 minutes from home. And I would say that for that 6 minutes, my dad was fighting for control of the wheel and to slow the car down while my mother was punching him, trying to gain control of the car and speed the car up. It's crazy to me that I had no fear in this moment. Zero. Just ice cold. Sitting there like nothing's happening. And thinking back to that moment and being there in that timeline is wild to me. How, like, I'm just like, and so are my brothers and sisters. Nobody screamed. Nobody said a word. Nothing. No words were spoken. And I think that that's the craziest part is, like, we didn't say, Mom, slow down, because we knew if we did, what the results of that would be at home. You see, we decided a long time ago to be silent because silence is the solution to an optimal beating, if there is such a thing. The more silence you have, the less you've provoked, the quicker it's over. Okay? Well, we ended up getting home somehow. I mean, I literally think she pulled in the up in the yard. That's where my parents always would pull in. You know, redneck. I qualify. Pull up in the yard and braked. Got out of the car. Went in the house, and us kids just went out and played like like nothing had happened. It's just wild to me how memories like this. It was just literally like, oh yeah, well, I guess this is Sunday. Here we go. We're gonna go kick the soccer ball around. Um, Looking back as an adult, I'm like mortified thinking about situations like this because I could never put my family through something like that. But I think that there was very frozen parts of me for a very, very long time. Um, because of memories like this where I wanted to be myself, but at the same time I had to manufacture the person necessary to be able to protect myself and my brothers and sisters. You see, I was the second oldest. I was the deuces, man. And ever since I was young, I just felt this unbelievable responsibility to take care of my brothers and sisters. I felt this like my my older brother and I were always at odds, I guess I would say, but my younger sisters, two younger sisters, one younger brother, I um I made it my priority in life to be able to help them. I made it my priority in life that we're all in this thing together, and I'm one way or another I'm helping them all get out of here. And I think that this memory was a pivotal moment in my life where I decided that that is what has to happen. That somebody's got to step up and make a decision, make things happen. And if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Parents certainly aren't. But what's really interesting about that memory, let me tell you, my parents get in the house and it's literally like somebody just changed the channel from the Dirty Dozen. Think now we're watching, I don't know, uh, Jeopardy maybe. So it was like the guys running and dropping the grenades and the pipes or whatever in the Dirty Dozen. Bam! Now I'm watching a very chill, relaxed Alex Trebek talk about trivia. It's very, very strange. And that's the volatility of my family as a kid was just crazy. It was like you never knew what was going to happen next. You just knew you didn't want it to happen to you. Unfortunately for me, this was the beginning of me realizing I needed to be a provocateur in my family system. And what that meant was my brothers and sisters are small. They're frail. They they are in a position where they're very young. And I had this sense of I have to be a protector. And that took many forms over the years, as we'll discuss. But initially, the idea was that I had to somehow, some way, manufacture the opportunity for me to have violence done to me so that there wasn't violence done to them. And I think it is wrapped up in that idea of me looking back and saying we're all gonna die. Like like just a sense of loving them as my family and my brothers and sisters. And I always felt like we were in this madness together and we didn't ask for it. We're just here and we have to find a way to live. I was always stunned by that idea that we're just in this thing. When we're in this thing together, I'm still very close with my brothers and sisters to this day because of that, I think. I think moments like this, you don't end up like you're bonded in a way for life. You know, I think some would call it trauma bonding. I think that you know, I think that there's a similar thing in a way in the military. It's obviously different because you're at war, and I would never claim to understand what that means. But where you go through traumatic events and you are connected to people, that's that's certainly my past. And I always wondered this about church. Like, I don't know if anybody watching this has had a church experience as a kid. You know, this was the beginning of me seeing how my parents are, I guess the term would be hypocrite, right? Like, you're one way at church, you're a different way in real life. And certainly, I would qualify for being a hypocrite. Just throwing it out there, man. I think most humans would because we all have our own issues, man. I would certainly never blame anyone like that, but I believe that I would qualify as that. And what I didn't understand at the time, but I've come to understand, because you think to yourself, okay, you got this person beating the kids in the closet, they're beating the kids at home. Like, what is going on here? All this craziness and madness happening. Why is this person, of all people, going to church? How does this make any sense? Well, what I've discovered is that the reason that people like that go to church is because they're trying to mood alter their shame. See, shame works in a cycle where you do these things that you're not proud of, and you're dealing with all the shame down here, and then you want to go to church so you can feel good about yourself. And then you go slip back into this stuff that you're not proud of and you're ashamed of, and then you go to church so you can feel good of yourself, about yourself. I I truly believe that is the cycle of shame eliminations a lot of people do. I mean, one of the most prolific shame eliminators like this was BTK. Dude, they found BTK, which is committed heinous crimes. They found him because of a floppy disk from the church that he attended that he was an elder at. I think it's really interesting how people say things like, we never imagined this person could do this. We never saw this coming. We were blindsided. This is not the person that we know. And I I think people can say that because they ignore the warning signs. The little subtlety of like, oh, why are they leaving like that? I wonder what she's angry about. Whoa, they peeled out. And then ask the next week, hey, why'd you peel out last week? What's going on? You know? Like, unfortunately, if that would have happened in that scenario, then my parents would have never gone back to the church ever again. And I wouldn't know and cherish some of the relationships that I have to this day. But regardless, I think for people, especially people that are dysfunctional people, going to church is about shame alteration. It's about mood alteration. It's about exchanging your shame in the moment at church so that then you can go back during the rest of the week and for some of it not feel guilty. And then by the time you're feeling guilty, boom, now it's time to get back into church again. That's the one thing about church that was um, really, really damaging for me because I got to see two very different people. I got to see my parents on a Sunday, and I got to see my parents on a Monday through Saturday, and they were not the same. And I believe that many of us can say that. And so, what I ended up doing is I ended up having this bias against church for a long time in my life, where church was the problem or something like that. When in reality, a church is just made up of people with problems. So, guess what? If you're going to a church, congratulations. You're experiencing the dynamic of human problems on display. You did it. You're experiencing it. And now, as an adult, um, I usually never miss a weekend at church, ever. And I think it's because, like, if you have a church where you can find real community and real relationships, there's nothing like it, man. Like, that you get to live life with a group of people, and your kids get to grow up with values with a group of people. It is a special thing. And I've always felt like, um, if there's anyone on the planet that should not be a Christian, I would win that. If that was an award, I'd be the guy winning that. Sign me up. But as we'll get into in future episodes here, I I didn't understand at the time what what it meant to actually believe in something beyond myself, but I came to rely on it to literally give me my very life and keep me safe. Um, I'm 100% convinced in what I believe, and my conviction is steady and sure because of what I've seen it do in my life, the impossible things that have happened in my life. And we're going to get into each one of them throughout this series. I want to encourage you that life is about finding community. And if you've got some issue, this happened, that happened, in some community church or a community group or whatever, I think that it's valid to want to run away from that thing. But be wise to what you're missing, because all people are not going to hurt you the same way one person did. And so it's like I'm willing to take everything that's happened in my life and put it into this one box and just throw it away. I mean, you wouldn't do that with driving in a car. I mean, I've been in accidents in my life. I'm not going to go, I'm never driving a car again because, man, accidents suck. I was just in a crazy accident a couple years ago. I was driving 30 miles an hour through a green light, straight, like the most innocuous thing you could be doing driving. Boom, T-boned. Never saw it coming because there's a whole left side of traffic where they're all turning left. And so I just saw those cars. I never got to see the car coming from the left when it wasn't their turn to go. And I bring that up because without church in my life, how I would have handled that would have been a very different person. And I remember looking down at the steering wheel and there's glass everywhere. And I look to my left and I say, oh, I was just in a car accident. And I get out of the car and they're blaming me, right? I mean, I guess everyone would do, hey, it's your fault, not my fault. That's standard human stuff, right? And I said, ma'am, I was going 30 miles an hour through a green light. And I just want to make sure you guys are okay. I don't care about the car. I don't care about material possessions. I care about you. Is everybody okay? Well, grandma's bleeding. And then I went through the whole thing, made sure grandma was okay, checked on her, made sure she found her cell phone, talked to her family, got people out there. And what was wild to me in that entire experience was that when the sister came and she witnessed how I actually cared for these people that had just T-boned me, and the police eventually said we're 100% in the wrong, right? When she witnessed how I took care of him, the sister that I didn't even know, she said, I want to give you a ride home. I got to take care of you and give you a ride home. And I said, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be very helpful for me. Boom, she gives me a ride home, and we're talking in the ride home, and I invited her and her family to come to church, and they didn't ever end up coming. I bring that all together in one whole thing to say this. I have become a man that does everything in my power to live by a moral code of ethics. And one of the principal things I lead my life by is an automatic level of forgiveness. Automatic. Your fault, my fault, nobody's fault. I'm going to forgive you anyway. Because if I don't forgive, it begins this cycle in me that leads to destruction. And I don't like destruction. I like things running good. And I think about this a lot. How many people have been hurt by churches and situations. And I'm not saying that whoever those people were, didn't do something that was wrong. It's not what I'm saying. What I've noticed in my life is anything that tries to isolate me from community is evil. And so if something that somebody did or said or any of that stuff happens and it isolates me from community, I need to check myself and recognize that there's something behind this trying to take me out of relationship with human beings. I honestly think that having good relationships with human beings can solve so much of our problems, where we can have trust built to a point where somebody can call us on our crap. So I don't know about you, but as a human being, sometimes I am off the ranch. I'm just going to be honest about it, okay? That's what this channel is all about, radical honesty. Sometimes I need my friend to go, hey, dude, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I've been to a lot of places, a lot of things in my life. I don't know if there's many places where you can find trust like that and you can build relationships like that where people genuinely care for you and your family. And you can witness people living out what in the best way that they can, what they actually believe in their life. That's what I love about church. You know, I, for many years of my life, allowed what happened to me as a young child to prevent me from going to church. And I really missed out on a lot of good memories and relationships. And I'm just grateful that now that I can see it from that perspective.